You did not exist, as you were talking about, in the mid-60s. So your subject, your cultural identity did not exist. And now you are, there's a million types of people that you could be. You can be a conservative lesbian. You can be, you can be, polyamorous. You can be bisexual. You can be this. You can be that.
Yes.
There's been, would you agree that there's been just a massive proliferation of legitimate cultural identities that are out there? And is that a good thing or a bad thing? And what's driving that move forward?
Well, at first I was very excited about the ethnic identity movement, because I feel very Italian American, and I've always been in revolt against the WASP style that dominated academia. When I first, Leslie Fiedler himself, was a victim of this. Harold Bloom was, and there weren't even any Jews hired in the Yale English department until like the mid-1950s, and there were quotas on Jewish students admitted to Harvard. All things like that. But over time, what's happened? I think, that gender identity has become really almost fascist, and it's to me a very shrunken, miniaturized way of perceiving your position in the world and in the universe. There was a time when these fine gradations of gender identity. I'm a male trans doing this with that going moving. This is a symptom of decadence. I'm sorry. As Sexual Personae talks about this. That was in fact the inspiration of Sexual Personae, was that my overview of history and my noticing that in late phases you all of a sudden get a proliferation of homosexuality, of sadomasochism, of gender games and impersonations and masks and so on. So I believe we're in a late phase. We're in a late phase of culture.
So that the proliferation of cultural identities, the proliferation of all sorts of possibilities, is actually a sign that we're
on the verge of collapse.
Yeah.
Yes, Western culture is in decline. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Okay, in my view, looking at the history of Egypt, of Babylon, of Rome, of Byzantium, and so on. And so what's happening is everyone's so busy, with themselves, with the solipsistic, narcissistic, a sense of who they are in terms of sexual orientation or gender, and this intense gender consciousness, women consciousness at the same time. And meanwhile,
is it also racial consciousness or ethnic consciousness as well?
I think that I think right now, to me, the real obsessions have to do with gender orientation. Although I think there's been this flare-up, I voted for Obama, but I've been bitterly disappointed. I think we had hoped that he would inaugurate a period of racial harmony, and I think the situation has become even worse, over the past, for recent years, with it seems to me overt inflammatory actions by the administration to pit the races against each other in the U.S. So I think there's a lot of damage that needs to be healed. But I think most of the problems, as I perceive them, as I can see them in my students and so on, is that there is a new obsession, with where you are on this wide gender spectrum, and a view of gender that seems to me unrealistic, because it is so divorced from any kind of biological referent. I do believe in biology. I do believe in the cult. I say the first paragraph of Sexual Personae, that sexuality is an intricate intersection of nature and culture. But what's happened now is that the way the universities are teaching is nothing but culture, and there's nothing's from biology. It's madness. It's a form of madness, because women who want to marry and have children, are going to have to encounter their own hormonal realities at a certain point.
But so do you see your personal liberation was that helped grease the skids for decadence, or for the collapse of Western civilization?
I have yes.
Do you feel at all ambivalent about that?
I've defined myself as a decadent. One of my first influences was Oscar Wilde. I stumbled on a little book called The Epigrams of Oscar Wilde in a secondhand bookstore in Syracuse, New York, and I was like 14, and I was fascinated by his statements. So I am a Wildean, as I'm saying, and he identifies himself as a kind of decadent. That period of aestheticism and decadence.
And certainly he was towards the end of the great hegemony of England as a world power, as a cultural power.
That's true too. Yes, the decline of the empire. Absolutely, absolutely right.